If you're anything like me, you have to drive your off-road vehicle on the pavement, sometimes thousands of miles just to get to the trail. So with that in mind, I'm gonna go over the Toyo Open Country MTs, which I've ran for about a year and a half and put about 30,000 kilometers on them. I'm gonna compare them to my new Nitto Trail Grapplers, which I've only off-roaded once and put about 2,000 kilometers of road work on these. First and foremost, I have ran the Toyo MTs in the snow and they did really well. I have not yet ran my Nitto Trail Grapplers in the snow, so I can't comment on these tires in the snow just yet. Also keep in mind, these are 37, 12.5 R17, whereas these are 38, 13.5 R17. Let's start by getting their actual measurements. Width-wise on the Toyo MTs, we'll go from the edge to the edge, you're looking at about 12.25 inches. The Trail Grappler, remember this is a 13.5 inch wide, is 13.25 inch. These are both inflated to 36 PSI. Let's check the height. Both tires are new. 36.25 inch height on the Toyo MT, and we've got 37.25 inch height for the 38 inch Nitto Trail Grappler. So both tires are pretty true to size. I've heard of tires that are way off. As for weight with this setup, you're looking at 117 pounds for the Toyo MTs with my Nomads, 121 pounds for the Nitto Trail Grapplers with these KMC wheels. Now I know I'm a little bit comparing apples to oranges, but this is something to keep in mind if you plan on going to a 38 inch tire from a 37, if it's even worth it. As you can see, measurement wise, you do get a full inch of height. Once you're aired down, I don't know. I will say there's been times where I cleared by that much on the trail. So for me, the 38s was, I thought, important. Now I'm not gonna get into the tire compound or the size of the lugs, the size of the spaces in between. I'm not gonna get into any of that. What that does tell you is the performance on road. You know, certain compounds, if it's a softer compound, it's gonna be better on the road. It's gonna be better off the road as well. It's gonna wear quicker. All these things are factors for sure, but I'm just gonna skip all that part and tell you how they perform for me with real life experience on the road and off the road. We're gonna start with on the road. For us, like I said, we have to drive on the road to get to the trail. So before we even air down, how do these two tires perform in comparison? I will say on the road, the Nitto Trail Grapplers are much more quiet. They're quieter than my KO2s, which is crazy to think. So the KO2 is an all-terrain tire for those of you that don't know about the KO2s. And I was blown away by how quiet these are. Now they are new. They'll probably get louder as they wear in, but my KO2s were also new, and I did notice how loud they were on the road. On pavement, dry, they perform pretty equally. No complaints out of either one of the tires. When it's wet, I find the Nittos to be a little bit more grippy. I find the Toyos to be stiffer, so when it gets wet, it's not quite as grippy. I'm gonna jump over to the sidewall for a second. Both of these are load range D with identical plies on the sidewall, which was interesting to me. The Nitto Trail Grapplers do feel a lot softer. Maybe it's the extra inch. I will say, even aired down, the Toyo MTs don't look like you've aired down much at all. And I've actually seen it in comments on multiple videos where people, especially driving in the snow, will comment, oh, you need to air down more on other people's videos. And the Toyos just don't look aired down when they are. Whereas in the Nittos, they do get nice and flat. You can see that bulge on the side, which is something to keep in mind as well. And staying on that topic, once you've aired down, again, I'm gonna give the edge to the Nitto Trail Grapplers, which sounds like I keep kind of leaning this way. And the fact of the matter is, I do find the Nitto Trail Grapplers to edge out the Toyos by a little bit. It's almost personal preference. I personally like the softer feel of the Nitto Trail Grapplers, especially when you're on the FSRs or the main service roads. These really soak up the washboards and those potholes. These just feel a little stiffer. Maybe you like that feel, you like that better, you're gonna want the Toyo Open Country MTs. I will say they perform very, very similar. You can't really go wrong with either one. And that's if you were gonna, you know, keep everything equal as far as sizes. If you want to jump up to a 38 from a 37, you don't have a choice. These don't come in 38s with R17s. You would have to go to the Trail Grappler. Now, bumping up in tire size, that's a whole other conversation. I did it. Was it worth it? To be honest, I'm not so sure yet. My truck is the Ecodiesel, and I do have it re-geared to 456. Now, according to the charts, that should put me right back to stock RPMs. And I guess it does, but it definitely lugs quite a bit more with the 38s. Maybe it's the width, maybe it's the weight, I'm not quite sure. But it does lug a little bit more, noticeably, with the 38s than it did with these 37s. With this setup here, it was real peppy, no problem to get up hills. Whereas in these ones, my EGTs do rise. I'm looking at about 800-900 EGTs, just regular driving around town. When I hit the hills, I have to slow down a little bit more, and the get up and go, you can just feel it. It's a little bit slower with the 38s. On the same token, when I'm off-road, I do notice the extra grip of the Nitto Trail Grapplers. Again, it might be the size, it might be the tire itself. It just gives me much more confidence rolling over the obstacles with these tires. And the reason why I say I'm not quite sure yet is the wear on the vehicle. I can feel when I hit bumps that these tires are putting a lot more wear on my components than these ones were. At the 37 by 12.5 inch, just that rolling mass just felt different, especially hitting a pothole at high speed. It felt different. It felt like the Jeep had no problem with these whatsoever. Whereas with these, I get a little bit of the wobble, and I can feel it has more wear on those components, which maybe gives me an excuse to upgrade my components. I do think a great happy medium would be a 37 inch by 12.5 inch Nitto Trail Grappler with a 456 gearing on the Ecodiesel. I can't speak for the gas engines. I don't have one anymore. I did run 38 inch Nitto Ridge Grapplers with 488 gears, but it was a manual transmission, which I'm assuming nobody drives anymore. If you do still drive manuals, drop it in the comments. I'd love to see it. Wear on these tires, from all the research I've done, are pretty close. I will say the Toyos wore out quicker than I thought they would. Although that is probably just my experience. From other people that I know that run the tires, they don't have that problem. So I don't know, maybe I was overinflating them or something. I don't know. Can't quite speak to the Nitto Trail Grapplers just yet. I've only been running them for a couple thousand kilometers. So of course, their wear is great. So to sum it all up, my personal preference, and I'm just a guy that drives my Jeep off-road, on-road, I'm gonna have to give it to the Nitto Trail Grapplers. They just edge out the Toyos by a little bit in almost every category for me. Might not be the same for you. You might want the harder compound or the stiffer sidewalls of the Toyos. If you do, then that's gonna be your option. Whether I'm going 37s or 38s next time, if this was my daily driver, which it's not anymore, but if it was, I'd definitely stick with the 37s. I just can't imagine that offset of off-road to pavement with all that extra wear. It almost doesn't make sense at that point, but it's not my daily driver. I use it to get to the trails, so it's gonna be fine. Quick side note I forgot to mention, if you're gonna be storing the spare wheel underneath the bed of the truck, you're gonna have to go with the 37s. The 38s won't fit. Some 38s do fit, depending on the true size of the tire. These ones are too big. That's something that you need to think about. If you do have any questions about my personal experience with either one of these tires, please don't hesitate to ask in the comments. I would love to give you the answers. And again, I'm speaking purely on performance-based, my experience with these tires on and off the road. Thank you very much for watching. If you found this informative, please do hit that subscribe button, give me the thumbs up, and until next time, go away, get lost, and unwind.